Good evening, one and all, and welcome along. I think I'm totally frozen.
No, you're still moving.
Very good. So, yeah, I don't know what happened there, but welcome along. It's season 5, episode 23. And Lauren, I think this is the first show we've done together since the start of the season.
It is. I've been fairly busy on Tuesday nights, but I've managed to rejig a few things tonight. Otherwise, you'd be doing it all by yourself, I think. So.
That's it. That's it. I'm starting to feel totally friendless at the minute, with you guys heading off to Dallas without me for a week, and then. But it's
Yeah.
great to have you along. And look, I haven't spoken to you since Dallas, so how was it?
Oh, it was just absolutely immense. Everything you could ask for and more. I mean, liver, as I said on Thursday, my liver's needing a bit of a break at the moment, because literally, I mean, we were, what, you're talking 18 hours on the go just in the transportation on the first day.
Yeah.
And then Chris throws us a fantastic barbecue. We meet up with the Can fans, and we're still going at probably about 4:30 UK time. Considering I'm pretty much on the go since about 5 o'clock in the morning the day before, sort of thing. And then absolutely everything that Barry laid out was, just top notch. I mean, getting to hang out with Des Bryant, and Des puts the Joey hat on and walks around with it for 45 minutes, and that was just brilliant. And there's a lot of things that went on, that Paul doesn't have any recollection of. So.
Well, look, as we always say, what goes on tour stays on tour. So we'll go no further than that. But I'm loving Lebarski's little dig at you there, Lauren. He's saying you must have forgotten your liver was Scottish.
It's still is Scottish. It's just it's getting on a bit in years. So.
Absolutely. And Mark Anthony is asking us, how was the Texas barbecue?
Incredible. I mean, I think that's all we basically ate for the entirety of our time there. I mean, as I say, Chris had laid on a barbecue. The next night, I think we picked up the turkey from Ferris Wheeler's barbecue.
Yeah.
Brought that back, and we thought, well, we're probably not going to eat a hell of a lot on Thanksgiving Day itself. We might as well start on that night. So we had some of that, and we were then we had Jack in the Box after the game on the Thursday. The Friday we got taken out to Hard Eight barbecue. Saturday we moved to the Sheraton Suites, and right next door was Ferris Wheeler's barbecue. So we were in there for dinner, breakfast, and dinner again. And breakfast on the final day as well. So I mean, it was literally, I think it was all barbecue that we had. So I'm glad I only came back about carrying an extra £5 or so. But
look, if you can't come back from Texas carrying an extra, I think I weighed myself when I went in 2017. I'd say I put on about £10 quite easily.
Yeah.
So you've got to do it. And Joe was saying he misses Jack in the Box and Lebarski, that good old Jack in the Box. Definitely.
It was well worth the wait, but I mean, I think whether they were short staffed or whatever, with it being Thanksgiving or not, but I mean, it took. I think Jamie at one point was about to jump across and try and make his own, because it took about 40 minutes for each, 40 minutes for each order to come out. So and Jamie had a few margaritas by that point in time. So I have to say, Jamie was all right walking home. There were a couple of lads who weren't. So
absolutely. Joe, I'm going to pick a bone with you here now for saying things like this. The only thing we have in Italy is pizza in the box. I've been to Italy for the last 2 years. I strongly disagree with that. And I can try to bistecca alla Fiorentina being absolutely the best thing you can eat in life.
Yeah.
But look, Lauren, we're here to talk. Obviously, we do love talking about barbecue and all things like that. But obviously, we're here to talk about Thursday night's game and, a 41-35 victory over the Seahawks at home. We're still second in the NFC East. Give us the thoughts after the game.
Well, I think first of all, in general, about the whole weekend, the whole of this weekend's been brilliant because obviously, yours and my college team have made it to college football playoff. The Eagles got taken out and spanked by the 49ers this weekend. It pained me to actually cheer on the 49ers this weekend, but I've had a chemical shower on Monday morning and I'm back to normal now. But it means that there's all to play for going into this weekend, which is brilliant. And fair enough. It's difficult to see us getting the 1 seed, but if we can at least get a divisional championship by winning this forthcoming weekend, then great. And it means we're not getting the bye week in the playoffs, but it means that we've got home field advantage, and obviously the way our home field advantage is at the moment, we're at 14 games and counting. So fingers crossed that continues. We've only got 2 more home games left this season.
Yeah, I think it's obviously this game on Sunday, and then
Detroit on December 30th.
Yeah,
the Jimmy Johnson induction.
There you go, the Jimmy Johnson induction, absolutely. So we'll all be tuned in for that. But one of the things I heard, I think it was yesterday, was that apparently even if we beat the Eagles, God, I said their name, Jesus, I'm really losing it. But if we beat them on Sunday, that they can still win the NFC East because if the two of us then went undefeated, because they'd have a better divisional record or something like this. So, we still don't have that getting that home field advantage in our own ownership as yet. But I mean, that team is not looking great right now. They've scratched wins when they should have lost, and they got a solid thumping on Sunday. They've lost a couple of players. They've brought in, obviously, we'll talk about Shaq Leonard in a minute. But I mean, is this maybe hopefully the start of them starting to fall down a little bit?
Well, you can but hope. I mean, obviously, one of the statistics at the beginning of the year was that teams who play the 49ers tend to lose the following week, which again bodes well for this week. And certainly it was a dogfight between the two of them. I mean, there was no quarter given between those two teams. So Philadelphia should be banged up. We've obviously had the 3 extra days because of playing on Thursday night. And we'll go back. Obviously, we'll discuss this, but I think the guys needed that 3 extra days. Obviously, the Cowboys are used to playing Thanksgiving. They're getting used to playing the following Thursday as well. So that's 3 games in something like 12 days. But it still takes tremendous toll on your body, and there's only so much you can do to actually factor all that in. And I think, some of the problems that we had in that game there were as a direct result of fatigue. Deron Bland getting picked on by DK Metcalf. I mean, Metcalf's obviously, he is a speedy receiver anyway. You only have to look at the love affair the NFL has with him when he tracks back and covers interceptions or whatever, and the speedometer and all that. But Deron Bland had a hard game, and he's probably one of the hardest hitters for a cornerback as well. So it's not like it's not like he's a Deion Sanders style of cornerback who, you know, just lets everybody else tackle. He's actually making those tackles as well. So it's maybe had an effect on him those 3 games in 12 days or so.
Yeah, and like the thing with this is, and I've kind of seen a few comments about this over the past few days, is, oh, the NFL is favoring Dallas again. You know, they always know now that they're getting they have their Thanksgiving game, and then they have their game on the Thursday the following week, and then they've, you know, a 10-day mini break. Everyone who plays on Thursday night football has a 10-day mini break.
Yeah,
you know,
and
it doesn't.
And last year was actually different because we had Thanksgiving. We then played the following Sunday, so you had a 10-day break there. But then you were playing the following Thursday, so you were you had 10 days, 4 days, and then you had 10 days again, sort of thing. So they are chopping and changing it. There is no guarantee that we're playing the Thursday after Thanksgiving as well. You know, and you could, it's again, you know, the criticism that Dallas has had that, you know, up until last weekend we hadn't beaten a team over 500. You know, but you know, as I say, it's not like you're loading up Madden every week and saying, right, this week I'm going to play X team or whatever. You can only play the teams that are on your schedule, and you can only the factors, the cards fall as they may. You know, so you have to deal with them as best you can. And touch wood, we're seeing that the team respond this year. So
yeah, absolutely. And look, as I kind of alluded to there a couple of minutes ago, I suppose the big news coming out since the weekend, obviously, is that Shaq Leonard has gone to that team up north. I don't think that was ever really in doubt, and that kind of broke maybe Tuesday, Wednesday last week. You know, that obviously I think is that Hassan Reddick is his best friend. One of his college coordinators is based in that, or is with that team now. So it wasn't really a surprise he didn't sign for us.
Well, I mean, if you also factor in that Nick Sirianni was actually the offensive coordinator for the first 3 years of his career at Indianapolis as well. There always, you know, there always is a sort of element of you worrying about letting somebody go out of the building. I think the turning point though probably was the fact that, you know, seeing how badly the linebackers were tackling for Philadelphia in the game on Sunday there. He maybe thinks he's got a very good chance of actually getting some serious playing time and actually being able to try and resurrect his career. It is a 1-year deal. It's base minimum, prorated, all that sort of stuff. So, you know, he's you got to remember he's actually getting paid by Indianapolis still for the remainder of the season in terms of his guaranteed monies. And you know, this is just a bonus rather than sitting around at home. He's still able to put tape out and say, look, I may have been passed over by younger players, but I've still got the potential to forge a career. And who knows, 5-6 weeks time, once Philadelphia's season's over, you know, and it goes to the off season, he's a free agent again, and we can maybe put the hard pitch on him as well. But you know, you thought he was maybe going to Philadelphia for a long-term deal. They were in the better position long-term. We were in the better position short-term in being able to handle the cap charge. It hasn't worked out that way. Wish him all the best, and we move on. So,
yeah, absolutely. And like what we're kind of hearing today, and Rich put this in our own private chat, but I'd seen Brian Broaddus had reported it as well. And as Rich said, Michael Fish is reporting it, is that Anthony Barr might be on his way back to Dallas. He's currently on the Vikings practice squad. And I think you said that he's been elevated twice already. So, you know, he's trying to be poached.
Yeah, again, it means because he's played 2 games, he's got the experience this year. It's not a case of putting him onto the practice squad and trying to ramp him up physically or anything like that. He should be ready to go. He knows the Dan Quinn defense. So, barring any tweaks that have gone in since he left the Cowboys, and I'm sure there have been tweaks because obviously Dan Quinn doesn't sit around and do nothing, twiddle his thumbs. The defense has changed year in, year out. Barr's actually been playing when he has got on. He's played substantially better than he probably was last year, and we probably need as much help as we can get. So, because Rashaan Evans, was guilty of a couple of penalties. I mean, last weekend I think that the refs seemed to like throwing the yellow dusters a hell of a lot because I think it was 19 penalties between the two of them. So
19 penalties for 257 yards.
Yeah. I think generally this year there was a stat while we were away that there's been something like 386 infractions this year and already $15.5 million in fines. And last year it was $15.2 million in fines for the whole season, and only 186 infractions or whatever. So they're certainly cracking down on it this year. And to me, part of it should be that you let everybody play, and unless it's right, okay. But
so for anyone who's listening in there, Lebarski has come in and he said no thank you to Anthony Barr. He said he'd rather have Lauren and his recovering liver out there than Barr than the Barr we got last year. But Lauren, as you said, look, he's playing better this year, and Rashaan Evans, we kind of have to make a decision on him.
Yeah. I mean, Evans has played. He's played okay, but I mean, obviously he's not getting the same game time because Marquise Bell, fair credit to him. Okay, he's a light linebacker, but he's actually stepping up, and he's putting the rest of them to shame. So, but there are going to be games, obviously, like this game that we're going into this week, where it's a steady running game. And this is probably where you need your linebackers more than most. But we'll leave that for Thursday's show, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been a couple of comments in here, and I'm going to throw this again. It's something we can lean into a little bit. Lebarski has said, "I'll put my chips into Agent Zero's corner," and then DJ Dog has come in and said, I believe Leonard would have been a replacement for the overshown role that had been planned in pre-season in that kind of spy type role.
Yeah. By all accounts, I mean, one of the things as well is obviously Leonard made his early career on being able to drop back in that sort of Tampa 2 and play that linebacker who's roving the length of the field, playing with the slot receivers, that sort of thing. Obviously hampered by injuries the last couple of years, he's not been able to do that. But one of the things that had attracted him to Dallas was that Dan Quinn had said he believed he could be the nickel linebacker for us, which means, again, bringing you back and expecting you to drop back in coverage more than anything. So it's don't think that he was truly playing us off against Philadelphia. I'm sure, if Philadelphia had won, the linebackers had played well and all that, and he thought, well, I've not got a chance of playing time there, I'm more likely to have Dallas, then he would have been back and I believe he was actually scheduled to meet Jerry for lunch today. From what I'd seen, he was still having a lunch with Jerry as well. So again, maybe that's putting the footwork in for next season as well, if nothing pans out with Philadelphia in terms of a long-term deal.
Yeah. And Lebarski he's just kind of asked us, so who are we cutting for Barr and Hendershot? I'd imagine Rashaan Evans is going to be the first name that'll be mentioned. It'd be just a linebacker swap out. Hendershot,
I think Tyrus Sweet has had a concussion the last couple of weeks.
There you go.
There's always a bit of creative accounting going on. So
Careful now with two accountants in the house, Lauren.
Yes,
we might get off track on that one. But look, I've kind of been seeing the betting line since the weekend, and obviously Jalen Hurts didn't have a great game on Sunday. Dak is now kind of very much in the running for MVP. Mike Parsons is very much the leader in the betting for the defensive player of the year, And obviously last week, I think it was before Thursday's show, we had Dak and then Deron Bland got offensive and defensive player of the year or player of the month for November. So, we have guys who are going to be in that postseason honors list.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think if that continues this trajectory that he's on at the moment, and there will, I believe there will be the odd blip. He has said he's cut down on interceptions this year. Touchwood, he's proved on that. But he is showing the poise that probably ranks right up there with pre-injury Dak. So if he carries with that, I mean, if you think about it, he was probably odds on that he was going to be in the running before he went down with the injury, because he'd passed for. You were talking he was almost going to be on 5,000 or 6,000 yards pace for passing that year. This year it's a case that he's just controlling the ball. And it does seem since the 49ers game, this is where our offense has actually suddenly started to click together. We had the teething troubles pre-49ers game and the 49ers game itself. From that point on, we've developed the chemistry with all the guys. You've got Lamb, you've got Brandon Cooks stepping up, and then you've got the bit parts coming in. The fact that you're seeing catches from Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Brooks, Kevontae Turpin, Dak's been able to spread it around, and this offense is actually it's kicked off in the last 4 or 5 weeks. It does seem that this, if he can keep it going, then I can quite easily see him being, if not the MVP, then because you do have to wonder, Tyreek Hill is on course for 2,000 yards as a wide receiver. That would be the first time. To be honest, I can see him getting the MVP if he manages to get over 2,000 yards. I think, it suddenly it'd be hard not to. So
And I love the way, Lauren, I think this always kind of happens anytime it's me and you are on the show. You kind of sink straight into a question that I'm building in my head. But you kind of mentioned it there in terms of, say, how the offense has performed since that 49ers game, and how kind of this Texas Coast offense is everyone starting to get familiar with it. The team is building, and there were a few sacks on Thursday night, but everyone seems to be getting a lot more comfortable with it. They're controlling the clock, they're controlling possession, and people know where they're supposed to be now, and like they're getting ahead early with throwing the ball, but then controlling things with running the ball. Obviously, look, you were there at AT&T for Thanksgiving, and is that how the offense is looking?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting that this week we actually went straight down the field and actually scored on the opening possession, Brandon Aubrey kicking a field goal. But, again, there was a few things that went wrong when we got down into the red zone. There were a few little niggles that stopped it and stalled the drive, and it meant that we had to go for a field goal. But again, thankfully, Brandon Aubrey is automatic at the moment in terms of field goals. So that was good. But as I say, I mean, I think that you've seen in every game that we've played, pretty much the first drive seems to be just seeing what's available, going through a script or whatever as you talk about, and then they then see things that they can build on, and that's when you suddenly go straight through the gears. By the end of the first half, you've got the lead in general. Obviously, it was a bit different this week, but your offense then kicks into gear, and you start pulling away. This week, obviously, it was a bit more chop and change. The lead changed so many times, and it was a case of trying combat that. And again, all credit to the guys. They could have folded. They could have, the defense wasn't their day for most of the. I think three quarters of the game, and then at one point, the last three drives, I think Seattle didn't convert anything at all. And obviously, this was a game that is one of only 5 certainly since the merger where there's been no punts in the game at all. And interestingly enough, 3 of those games, Mike McCarthy's been a coach in them. So he obviously, it was a completely weird game from that point of view. It's not a game that you see all the time where there are no punts. But yeah, to be in a dogfight like that, and and again, you've seen criticism this week where the Eagles have basically won ugly for all of their games so far this season that they've won. They've won by 6 points or so or less.
Yeah.
And everybody's going, oh yeah, the Eagles are brilliant because they're doing what it takes to win. The Cowboys do the same thing, and they're criticised for letting and fair play. Seattle last year were a playoff team. They're on, they're 6-6 at the moment. They're not out of it. They're still in with a shot of getting a wild card position as well. Fair enough. I think Geno Smith has had games where he's been found out, and you've almost been back to the New York Jets. The New York Jets, Geno Smith, but you can only again give the same credit to Dallas for winning games that are ugly. But no, obviously ratings click, bash the Cowboys, and
it is very true. So look, we're nearly half an hour in, and we probably need to take a little bit of a look at the offense itself. And like the numbers are rolling through the bottom there in terms of like Dak 29 for 41, 299, 3 yards. Again, no interceptions. I mean, what more can Dak do, or how much better can he be, or is it just a case of maintaining the level he's at now for the rest of the season?
I would maintain this level if he can keep the turnovers to a minimum, get multiple touchdown games like this. I mean, I think having three touchdowns this game, I think he's on pace for 6 this season at the moment already, and there's still 5 games to play. The offense has really taken off. As I say, he's spreading the ball around, so it's not even like you get where last year, or a couple of years ago, where Noah Brown would come in and Noah Brown would literally be blocking on running plays or something like that. This time, the guys are all coming in knowing that if it's a passing play, there's a good chance it's going to come to them. Okay, he's seeking out CD Lamb, he's seeking out Brandon Cooks, but it's if they're covered, then it's going to go to somebody else. And you've seen that with that sideline catch that Jalen Tolbert made, where Dak scrambled out and Dak bought time. That was just a thing of beauty. That almost goes back to the sort of Terrence Williams from a few years ago as well, where catch it on the sideline, just drop out, and you've got an easy first down. And even I think the main thing as well is this offensive line is beginning to gel. Yes, it had problems. I think all the sacks were pretty much on the first couple of drives. Seattle had 4 sacks in this game, after the offensive line were able to sit down and say, look, this is what they're doing. That was it. They shut it down, and Dallas were able to. It didn't really have many problems going forward. So
and I mean, if you kind of expand upon that, and little Mac had a comment in there, he's just said, "Can we get a shout out to the O line? They're playing really well." And I mean, again, does this really go back to the fact that you have a fully fit offensive line for the first time in a while that has played together? I think it's nearly, is it 5-6 games now where we haven't had to change anyone on the line?
Yeah, I think it's 5 games now that the full squad are there. And again, Touchwood, they're getting substantial play out of Tyron Smith. Normally if you saw him this rest days and not actually practicing him during the week, that would be a cause for concern. But I don't know if he's sitting in the video room watching the upcoming opponents to see what moves they put on or whatever. But he is pretty much back to the dominating left tackle that you expect him to be. And the fact that he's only given up a couple of pressures in the last 10 games or something like that he's played, again shows that he's not ready to be put out to pasture just yet.
Yeah. And I suppose kind of question coming out of these last couple of games in terms of the O-line is, I suppose, really, is left guard the position now for Tyler Smith? And should we maybe look at drafting a true left tackle, be it in this draft upcoming or maybe in 2025? With, like, we all know Tyron is very close to retirement. And, do you want to do to Tyler Smith what you did to a Tyron Crawford, who you moved inside and outside, and he never knew exactly where he was? Like, you're getting dominant play out of Tyler Smith. So are they better left to leave him where he is?
I think he's best where he is at the moment, and I think obviously the PFF rankings are saying pretty much the same, that he's one of the best guards in the league at the moment. He's dare I say he's the best ranked offensive lineman of the Cowboys, and that's saying something when you look across the others to the other guard, and you know what a substantial guard he is as well. I think that's one reason why they haven't moved him when we had all the injury issues at the beginning of the season. That it is better to let him develop as a single specific position. And you did that if you go back historically as well. I mean, Nate Newton played tackle at points and then was switched into guard. Then was a mainstay of the guard situation. Larry Allen was a tackle at one point, switched into guard, decided he was better there. Obviously, we had Lyle Collins. Lyle Collins was probably better the other way, and then got switched out to the tackle. But that's it. It sometimes happens that you're called on to play one position, you play that position, and they think, actually, you know what, you were drafted for this position, but we think you're better here. And again, who knows, if you change the offensive line coach, maybe he comes in and says, no, I'd rather have something else. And yes, you do move him, but I think going forward, short term, certainly he is the future at guard.
Yeah. Just a few comments kind of coming in there from so DJ Dog saying, look, develop Richards and look for another tackler guarded or a player who could play both. Lebarski is saying, problem is it'll be easier to find a guard than a tackle where we'll be playing. And then DJ Dog has come back in and said, this next draft, by the way, will be very deep at tackle. Those players get snapped up quickly though. And I mean, look, that is the thing. Like, I'm way behind on the draft this year and where I normally am, But what I am seeing is there's a lot of tackles in this class. So and we look, we're projecting here, we don't know for certain. If they need a left tackle in this upcoming draft class, they probably will have a chance to get one in that first round if they go that way.
Yeah. I mean, there should still be draft eligible tackle or first round eligible tackles at 32.
Yeah.
So which is hopefully where we're picking next year. But I mean, I think, even when Tyron wasn't available, I think you've got a serviceable play out of Chuma Edoga. So he's maybe your veteran backup if nothing else, and you then you can draft somebody and not have to force them in as a baptism of fire. So that's a good thing, because especially you don't want to be spending a hell of a lot of money on free agency, bringing in a tackle that, worked in one system, but maybe doesn't work in this system. So if you've got somebody like Chuma Edoga, he continues on this course or, maintains this level. If Tyron is done after this season, then you can certainly go further forwards with Chuma Edoga, bring somebody in, and bring them on slowly.
And I'm loving the comments that are coming in from everybody telling us we're picking at 32 this year. Absolutely loving the confidence, folks. And look, as we say, with everything to do with the comments, we love the comments. We love that you guys will interact with each other in the comments. So, keep that up. And look, if we haven't come to your comment or address your comment, there is something there that we're trying to touch back on it later. So if you don't see your comment coming up straight away, bear with us. We do have a flow that we're trying to get to. DJ Dog has said I like Richards and would like a free agent guard they got from Oregon as development guys on the line.
That'll be TJ Bass, I think.
Yeah. And then Lebarski is saying we always bring in tackles that didn't work in another system and pay them cheap, hoping we can get them right in our system. And I mean, I think that's fair. Like, they kind of have done that. Like, you're looking, as you say, Chuma Edoga, Cam Irving, Cam Fleming. They've always brought a guy in for a year. And it's more insurance for Tyron rather than to bring them in and play and have them on a long-term deal.
Yeah. But as I say, I think what you're getting out of Chuma this year is actually better than you ever got out of Fleming or Irving. Fleming and Irving were probably one step up from sort of Chaz Green. You were always worried about if they were playing that, you were maybe going to end up giving up a 6 or 7 sack game, just from that position. As Lebowski's saying there, Cowboys have always made a name for themselves, bringing in guys, moving them around, like Leonard Davis. Leonard Davis was cast off by the Cardinals because he wasn't the left tackle that they wanted him to be. We brought him in, thought, actually, you're going to be better as a guard. And, he suddenly went all pro with that. Earlier this season as well, again, as is mentioned here, I was concerned about whether Mike Solari's system was a bit different, that there wasn't the buy-in. I think, I think somebody, I think it was Tyler Smith, that same week was on the Cowboys Hour, and he was saying that actually the big thing is, obviously, it wasn't the physicality of the position and what was being asked. It was more the communication between the 5 guys that hadn't been there because they hadn't been together during pre-season, what with Zach's holdout, Tyler's injury and all that sort of stuff. Bringing them all together, and now we're seeing the benefits of it after the last 5 weeks or so as well. And again, as we're seeing, because in the games that we are supposed to win, and they have been blowout wins. We've been able to bring Chuma Edoga, Asim Richards, TJ Bass. We've been able to bring them in the fourth quarter when the game's out of hand, and you're getting them experience. So they're not going in untested rookies or untested first-year players next year.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance that they will step up come training camp next year. And again, provide that level of competition that makes the whole offensive line better.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to go back to a point, and you kind of alluded to it there earlier, and I'm going back up to where it was. You know, you made the point about Talbot, you know, that catch along the line, and you kind of mentioned Terrence Williams, and for years that has been Michael Gallup, and it just seems to be there's something not right. It just seems to be the injuries, or the injury just he hasn't come back the same player.
I think because when Michael Gallup was getting called on earlier in the season, there was criticism because you brought Brandon Cooks on, and Brandon Cooks had done next to nothing in this offense.
Yeah.
Brandon Cooks in the last 3-4 weeks has really established a name for himself, and where he was lucky if he had 100 yards receiving for the first 5 games of the season, he's now closing in where there's a possibility he could be a 1,000-yard receiver again this season. You know, and that's certainly what you know. You were almost saying, well, you've got him in your arsenal, and you're not using him. Why aren't you using him? Well, that's come on. Michael Gallup, then, you know, because of his inconsistency, he's still making the spectacular sideline catches when he's required. But he was then also the same way that Schoonmaker's dropped easy passes. Gallup was dropping easy passes as well. And then that then gives Dak a little bit of hesitation when when the game's on the line, he goes to somebody else. You know, and it's a money game. Maybe the coaching staff are thinking, let's see what we've got out of Tolbert. Tolbert's relatively cheap for the next couple of years. You can get out of Michael Gallup's contract next year for, you know, base minimum sort of dead cap, you know, and you can move on. So it's been a bit disappointing, but don't count him out. I mean, as Mike McCarthy says, you need all 67 players or so for a season. It takes the year he won the Super Bowl for Green Bay. I think he had something like 75 players who played at least one game that season. So, you know, it does require everybody on that team. And even if you're a lowly practice squad player, you're still helping to develop players as well in the practice reps as well. So,
I mean, it harks back to the day that Jimmy Johnson cut someone going into the playoffs. And you know, and Jimmy was told, well, you know, if this guy is cut, he still gets the Super Bowl ring, he still gets his bonus, and he just said, you know, I don't care, I need someone else in here. You know, like, teams will be ruthless with players, and you know, sorry, I was just trying to find the point. Yeah, DJ Dog has kind of said, you know, like Talbot, we're getting something out of Talbot. We seem to be getting something out of Jalen Brooks as well, you know, and Cavante Turpin is getting 1 or 2 catches a game for, you know, for a couple of years. So they're using everybody in this offense.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, again, it's whether it's Turpin not coming in late in training camp and Kellen Moore saying, well, look, I've got my offense set, I'm not willing to change it or whatever. But this year, certainly Brian Schottenheimer, and maybe it's something as simple as well that Cavante Turpin has had all off season this year to relax. He went 18 months or so playing in 3 different leagues before he even got picked up by the Cowboys last year. You know, this year he's had a whole off season to relax, get his body back into shape, and you know, again, barring the fact that his wife gave birth right at the beginning of training camp, he was in training camp. He only missed a couple of days of training camp. but there's maybe not been any other distractions this year. And he's able to focus a bit better, get in on the offense, make the most of his opportunities as well. So,
yeah. And as we say, Mark Anthony is calling it out here. He's saying Dak is definitely spreading the wealth about. I mean, like we know CD is the number one target, and he's getting 10 to 12 catches a game. Brandon Cooks is getting 5 to 6. Jake Ferguson's getting 5 to 6, and that's pretty much your throwing in a game. And then like you're getting, say, Turpin, Talbert, Brooks, Michael Gallup. There's only one or two more balls to go around in a game. You don't want Dak throwing more than 30, 35 times in a game,
Yeah.
But look, it would be remiss of us to not talk about the offensive performance of one Jake Ferguson last Thursday night. And as Little Mac said, he is a problem for defenses. He is a problem for safeties.
Yes, especially overpaid safeties, who the team paid a hell of a lot of draft capital as well to pick up as well. I mean, he was trying to be an intimidator. Jake Ferguson just wasn't having any of it. He focused on the job at hand, and even when Jamal Adams was in his face, he just signaled for a first down and carried on. Obviously, seeing the sideline of the Eagles and 49ers game, that wouldn't have happened if it was somebody else. So, I think Fergie is really coming in, and he, again, we were worried about losing Schultz. Okay, it's taken a 5 or 6 weeks, but Fergie has made us forget about Dalton Schultz, albeit Dalton Schultz is actually playing really well down in Houston as well. So, and it's great that we've got these guys, because in the past, because we had Jason Witten, and Jason Witten was the be-all and end-all of the tight end room. If you think about all the guys that basically then went on to other teams because Jason Witten was the progress stopper, we're seeing the contribution there. Schoonmaker's now getting involved as well, and is getting better as well. I think next year you're going to have a fantastic 1-2 punch between Jake Ferguson and Schoonmaker. Bring in Hendershot as well if he can make it back. And this tight end room is going to be great for the next couple of years as well. So
I mean, as you kind of said, and I don't want to talk about that other game too much, but I mean it was the thing. And sorry, DJ Dog was kind of saying it here. It's his attitude, and Mark Anthony said it as well. It's the attitude of Ferguson. Like, he plowed through Jamal Adams and just as you say, he pointed for the first down, and Adams went at him and tried chat, and Jake Ferguson just said, I'll let my game do the talking. And you saw that when he caught his touchdown. I mean, his catch for the touchdown was sensational. He was almost going away from the ball and caught it, and looked at Jamal Adams and said, there's your answer,
Yeah, and I mean, the worst that can happen is you get into a drawing match where these people, the odd punch is thrown, and you're no use sitting in the changing room because you've been given a yellow flag and ejected. So focus on what you need to do. Don't let the background noise that these guys are trying to put on. And the Fergie is certainly, he's a professional, and he is putting that to one side, and he is doing the job that's required of him, regardless of what's going on around him.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, we'll flip it over and we'll talk about the defensive side of the ball. And again, there was a comment sent in earlier. I'm just trying to pull it up from, I think it was from Andrea, and this was reflected in a couple of other points. And Andrea, thanks for joining, and thanks for posting comments. good game, bad games, they can't all be good, but our defense needs to step up a lot more. And there was another comment from someone else who was saying, were we concerned about the defense? I think you alluded to this earlier. It's a little bit hard to say to give out to the defense. Like, they've played 3 games, as you said, in 12, 13 days.
Yeah.
There's wear and tear there, and you're gonna have those bad moments.
And I think as well, if you look at it, if you look at the time of possession in those 2 games at the beginning of the 3-game run as well, the time of possession meant that the defense was heavily on the field. I think, if I remember correctly, it was something like the Commanders were on the field for something like 36 minutes of the game. So it means the defense were only off the field 24 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
And that wears you down. Obviously, the defense were managing to do things. Micah was getting through and getting pressure. They only came away with 1 sack, but I mean, that was purely because as Gino was going down, he managed to fling the ball out, and thankfully there was a receiver within 15 yards or whatever, so it wasn't intentional grounding or anything like that. But I think the whole point of view is that the defense had been on the field for so long over those 3 games that they were sore. The pressure was not getting to them, but it was there, and it was palpable that everybody was a little bit slower, a little bit more tired or whatever. But when the game was on the line, and everybody talks about Mike McCarthy having interesting clock management issues and all that. I can see what Mike McCarthy was doing, trying to go for the touchdown, extend the lead to what it'd be 10, 11 points, depending on whether you go for 1 or a 2-point field goal. But obviously it killed the clock because of the incomplete pass, and it meant that Seattle had it with 1:46 left on that last drive. But the defense stepped up, and obviously Micah Parsons got the sack there. Everybody was saying, well, what were Seattle thinking by leaving Micah unblocked? But in actual fact, on that particular play, the whole reason why it went tits up is that DeMarcus Lawrence was in a position to basically take out the running back who was the intended receiver of that screen. If DeMarcus Lawrence hadn't managed to do that, then the pass would have been complete. Seattle would have still been moving, and yes, it could have been highly different. But because of that split second, that's all it needed for Micah to take down Geno Smith and get the 1 sack of the day. So, and they effectively end the game as well. So, as I say, obviously Deron Bland was also he was picked on in that first half. I don't blame him for the long touchdown. The long touchdown that he gave up, that was purely that Donovan Wilson was actually out of position. He'd followed the eyes of Geno Smith, come into the middle of the field. He should have actually dropped back and gone into a position where he could have at least made the tackle, but didn't. And you're then playing catch up to try and take him down. But other than that, I mean, Deron Bland still came away with a pick. And then the change that they made, they put Stephen Gilmore on DK Metcalf. They put Bland on Njigba and Lockett. And it worked out better. And again, going forward, obviously the Seattle receivers are very similar to what we're going to be facing this weekend with the Philadelphia wideouts. It gives you an idea of what you're playing against. It gives you a chance to look at the inadequacies of last week's game, build on it for this week, and come out firing this week, along with the rest as well, and we should be ready this week as well.
Yeah. And the comments are kind of lighting up. And as we say, look, folks, we love that you guys will chat to each other in the comments. It's great to see the interaction from you. Little Matt kind of mentioned, he said, Jordan Lewis is playing better. DJ Dog responded saying, yeah, I agree. He's come up huge in the clutch. And Lebarski then came in and said, he deserves some prop. That's the Lewis of old. And I mean, that's what you want to see from your kind of veteran players, is that steady improvement. You know, like Lewis has had poor games this year, but he's getting better at the time in season when you want him to be better.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, what you've got to remember is if Trayvon Diggs was still there, Jordan Lewis probably would be your fourth cornerback. Yeah. Bland would still be your slot corner, and may have surpassed Gilmore, but Gilmore's still got that wily veteran sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think Bland is now you're not for the remainder of this season. Bland's probably your number one cornerback. Gilmore's your number two. Yeah. Albeit it's a lot closer than if you were Trayvon Diggs and Gilmore. But yeah, Lewis certainly came up and had a great game in that game as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And look, that's what we want to see. Just want to go back to a point here. I just saw it coming in. I think it was from from Joe. He's just said that Logan Ryan has signed with the 49ers. So, I mean, teams are still adding players, and that's what you want to see.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'd want to take on Logan Ryan personally, but, you know, look, they had a need. Like, I think Hufanga is gone for the rest of the season, so they needed a safety.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the 49ers defense, you know, they've had problems this season with their defensive backfield. It seems to have solidified in the last couple of weeks. But again, you know, the team that thinks that they're going to be riding with these guys for the remainder of the season and not bothering to look and see what's out there, constantly evaluating what's out there and whether it's better for you or not. They're the ones that are going to be sitting at home picking first in the draft or whatever. If you're constantly churning that roster, I mean, Bill Parcells used to like churning the roster. Jimmy Johnson back in the days before salary cap, you know, there were guys coming in on Tuesday, playing on Wednesday, playing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, whatever, and then you know picking up their P45 and they're back on the job market the next week. You know, you'd hate to be somebody working in the changing rooms and having to constantly change the signs that are on the lockers.
Absolutely. And I mean, I get Mark's point here. I'm just going to pull it up. He said, I don't like talking about next year because we still have a lot to go this year, but next year's defense should be scary good, barring any injuries. And I mean, you know, you're adding in, Trayvon Diggs. You're adding in DeMarvion Overshown, plus whatever comes in this draft class. You know, I don't think there's too many of the guys are going to be gone after this season that are regular contributors. So, you know, if you can get maybe Jonathan Hankins, again, another guy who deserves a huge amount of credit over the last couple of weeks, if you can get him back for another season, you're really helping this defense out.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it all depends on the coaching as well. And, you know, if we do achieve the ultimate goal of winning the Super Bowl, then, you know, Dan Quinn has satisfied what he said he's staying in Dallas for. You know, I think from what I've been reading as well, there's going to be numerous vacancies this coming off season from long-standing veteran coaches who may be thinking about retirement or maybe ushered out the door. To obviously we've seen a couple of firings already. You know, so again, Dan Quinn's name should be on the hot list for a lot of these. You know, I'd imagine Juice Staley's probably on his not Juice Staley, Staley at San Diego, Los Angeles Chargers.
Los Angeles Chargers, yeah.
He's going to be out the doors shortly.
Eberflus is done for.
Yep.
You know, I'd have no problem seeing Matt Eberflus back in Dallas if he does become available.
Again, I mean, you've got to remember that, you know, Wade Phillips was a great guy as a defensive coordinator. I mean, went to 3 Super Bowls with 3 different teams as a defensive coordinator. You know, was okay as an interim head coach. Ask him to come in and be the head coach full time, and unfortunately, that was above his sort of pay grade or his ceiling of capabilities. And it is, the higher up you go, the less you're dealing with the sort of day-to-day interaction with the players. You've got everything else. You've got to timetable everything. You've got more responsibilities. You've got press, media. You know, even with the Cowboys, you've got your own television show that you've got to film as well, and that's taking time away from it. So it really is, the heart and soul of the team are actually your offensive and defensive coordinators, because you rely on them more than anything else. So
so Lebarski has kind of said after a Super Bowl win, we might get a few guys back on discount. DJ Dog is saying that Jonathan Hankins is on a hot streak. DJ Dog has also said that there's rumblings Kellen Moore could be the next head coach of the Chargers. Good luck to them if that's the case. Joe has said he's heard it on some of the podcasts that if Dallas doesn't go far, that McCarthy is on the hot seat and Dan Quinn might be our next head coach. I'm not sure about that. I mean, Mike McCarthy has us on track for another 12 or 13 win season. And if you sack a coach who has given you 3 12-plus winning seasons, I mean, that just strikes me as rather harsh on a head coach.
I think so. And I mean, I think the whole reason why we moved on from Jason Garrett is that you were 8-8, 8-8, 8-8, 4-12, 12-4. You know, you were up and down and up and down and up and down. There was no consistency. You couldn't say, right, well, we've built on what we had last season, we've built on this season, and we're ready to take the next step. 2 straight years of 12-5. You're potentially at least looking at 10 wins this season, if not 12 again. You know, obviously the next step for Jerry is trying to get further in the playoffs. But, you know, once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. It really is. That's where you need your luck, is once you're in the playoffs. Because everybody that you're playing up against is not chump change. You know, these guys are ready to roll and put in their best shot for going to the Super Bowl. So
absolutely. And like, look, I can accept Joe's point here. He's saying, for me, if McCarthy doesn't at least take the Super Bowl, he should be gone. I mean, that's quite harsh, considering, as I say, you're not playing cupcake teams in playoffs. Your route to a Super Bowl runs through Pennsylvania or San Francisco. You know, so it's not going to be easy to beat either of those teams if you have to travel to one of those locations, or potentially both of those locations.
Yeah, I think how you know, if we get further, but again, it's a heartbreaking loss. I think that if that comes in, if it's an absolute wipeout in the playoffs, that would probably spell the end of his coaching tenure here. But again, because it's the consistency that we are least, you know, third best team at the moment in the NFC. You know, that certainly is a plus in Mike McCarthy's cap.
Yeah. And I did mean to come back to this. So Lindoria is asking, what do you guys think of Brian's room? So for those of you who can see over my shoulder, I do have my piano over my right shoulder here, and my marble fireplace. And Labarski is saying, it's just gold and diamonds everywhere. Absolutely, it is, Labarski. So thanks for the comments. But Mark Anthony, I'm just going to pull up a point here from Mark Anthony. It's so sad to think in today's game we would not know who Tom Landry is. He started with 6 losing seasons and would have gotten fired after the 3rd season today.
Yeah, and I mean, people were calling for Landry's head after 3 seasons, and Clint Murkison responded by giving him a 10-year extension. And Tom Landry himself only thought that he was basically doing it on a year-to-year for those first couple of years. He thought the whole he'd worked on his career away from football, because back in those days, coaches went out and sold insurance, all that sort of stuff. They weren't full-time coaches 24/7, 365. And it took balls of steel for Murchison Jr. to actually give Landry that contract, but it still took another couple of years for him to actually get over the hump, get to the playoffs or have a winning season. And then as soon as you have a winning season, he has 20, and that has never been matched since.
Yeah.
The closest was the guy up in New England who got to 19, and then Tom Brady went to another team and he faltered. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's always the debate of who is the greatest head coach of all time. Was it Lombardi? Was it Chuck Noll? Was it Tom Landry? Is it Bill Belichick? And I mean, I think the fact that, as you said, Landry went 20 seasons with a winning record, that hasn't been matched by anyone. And I mean, I think the next closest now is Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
He's 12 or 13 seasons now with a winning record, is it?
Yeah, something like that. So
and having a coach like that, a head coach that is going to get you 8 to 10 wins a season. I mean, Little Mac has kind of said here, 12 and 5 with a potential 3rd season of going the same is not to be scoffed at. And I think this is the point here. Mike McCarthy is better than anybody that's going to be available this offseason.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if you take on one of the hotshot offensive coordinators, you're still rolling the dice that they can step up and be a head coach. Was it more that the players that they had excelled with their system, where again, coming to Dallas, the system might not work. And then you've got that whole turnaround as well that, everybody basically, with the turnover in the NFL, you never, unlike pre-salary cap where, everybody was under contract all the time, or you had the rights to that guy until you either traded them away or they died.
Yeah.
You only have to look at it again, and I hate mentioning the name, but Philadelphia only just cutting the guy who's been on the roster or on the roster for 21, 31 years or whatever, because he got suspended and actually went off and played in 3 other leagues as well. Probably should never have done that, because actually Philadelphia still retained his rights.
I mean, Roger Staubach's retirement papers or his registration papers still haven't been handed in, I believe.
Yeah, something like that. Roger Staubach could probably still go and throw a 40-yard pass downfield, So,
yeah. I think I think it was in his own a football life that Troy Aikman talked about that, or Staubach is so competitive, that he could probably throw the ball, as you say, 40, 50, 60 yards quite easily.
Yeah. Yep.
But look, before we do get out of here, Lauren, we always love to give our guys a bit of credit, and it's hard this week on special teams to give them much credit because Brian Anger was almost inactive in the game. Cavante Turpin had no punt returns, and Hunter Luke, he only took one kick return out of the end zone. But again, Brandon Aubrey had a busy day, and he is still perfect on field goals this season.
Yeah, and that's all you can ask for. I mean, again, we were discussing briefly while we were away on holiday, on the trip as well, whether Brandon Aubrey's got a chance at Rookie of the Year if CJ Stroud falters. I certainly see it being a possibility. I mean, if not, you create an award for him because, certainly, he's now what 4 or 5 field goals past the record that was initially Travis Coombs's record of 18. I think he's he must be about 26, 27 now, actually, I think.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he definitely passed us before Thanksgiving.
Yes. I think he was on 22 going into this week's game, and obviously kicked 4 there, so that would be 26 then. So
yeah. Lebarski, as always, with a killer of a comment. This was my favorite Anger performance ever. I mean, considering what happened in the, I think it was the Tennessee Titans Indianapolis Colts game. I mean, I'm happy that we have a punter who's standing upright at the minute.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And as Joe says, I can't believe there were no punts in that game. I mean, as you said, Lauren, it's the 5th game since the merger.
Yep. Maybe even further going back. I mean, obviously the statistics that have been kept about every single game since the merger have obviously been better than pre-merger statistics. But it's certainly the 5th game with no punts post merger. So.
Absolutely. So look, I think we're an hour and 15 minutes, Lauren, and I think it's time we paid the bills and got ourselves out of here.
Yep.
No, I'll give you the Cowboys experience one.
So again, obviously, there's only 2 games left for the rest of this regular season. But if you're looking for next year or the remaining games, make sure you book up with Cowboys Experience for the ultimate game tickets, stadium tours, meet and greets, and so much more. I mean, I can't stress enough. Going into the tour, obviously, we've been saying that Barry treats you like royalty. I mean, you saw how much Barry put into this. He's already working on ideas for should there be another tour, and we're toying with that as well. It really has to be. You really need to book up with Cowboys Experience, and if you are going to book up with them, make sure that you use the code UK Cowboys because you'll get some free stuff as well.
I'm loving that there are calls for us to start the second half of the show from the party. And as always, Joe is saying good night, and it's a great show. DJ Dog, you won't see us next week. There will be a show on Thursday night, which is previewing the game against that team up north. Lauren, I'd imagine you'll probably be on Thursday night with Mike on the team.
I should be. I've got a couple of meetings for my daughter's trip next year, but I'll hopefully be back in time to be on that.
Yeah. So we should have a bit more of the crew back. I think kind of everyone has been back to work that's been on the trip, and as I say, if I hadn't have had Lauren for tonight, I would have been winging this one on my own. So my thanks and appreciation to Lauren for joining for this evening.
Yeah, Paul's the last one back, and he's finally, he should be in his bed now because he got back to Heathrow first thing this morning, only to find out that the flight from Heathrow got cancelled, and once again he had to travel across London to London City and get another connecting flight back up. So he was raging about that, absolutely shattered. And the photos that he was putting in our group about 5 o'clock this afternoon, I mean, he was a dead man walking. So, you know, I hope he manages to get some sleep and he gets back on UK time as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, it's a good night from me, folks. And as I say, make sure and join on Thursday night at 9 o'clock here in the UK and Ireland, 10 o'clock in Central Europe for our great friend Joe, and then 4 o'clock and 3 o'clock in Texas on Thursday night. But it's a good night from me.
It's a good night from me. Dallas forever, Philly for never.
Good night.